Hey everybody, Ace here, and I want to make a quick follow-up video to the video I made the other day about Sony announcing the end of physical media starting in 2028. And I think a lot of people that are really invested in the gaming industry from either a consumer perspective, or maybe they run a business, or they're just a big fan, kind of like me, I'm in the middle, have kind of seen the writing on the wall and known that this type of thing was inevitable as technology advanced, as more people had high-speed internet at home, as the consoles became more powerful and had more storage, etc. And just the obvious impact of the companies purposely forcing you to buy digital or making digital more convenient, and all these things piled on top of each other, that we were eventually going to come to this point where physical media just was no longer convenient for the manufacturer or the companies to invest in because they've pushed all the technology in a certain direction. But one of the things that I thought about the other day was, how is this going to impact physical resale stores or people that have retro gaming stores, and how this is going to affect them? I thought about this because it's something I've always thought about myself, about opening my own store and pursuing that. Nonetheless, I think about GameStop, which is really the only mainline video game store that still exists. Back when I was younger, we had EB Games, we had GameStop, we had other stores out there that were very game specific, but they're pretty much all gone. I don't count Best Buy or any of the big box stores just because they've always had the ability to have a gaming section, but I'm talking about stores that only did video games, or video games was their main thing they sold. And GameStop is really the only mainstream store that exists. And with the end of physical media from Sony, and obviously all the other gaming manufacturers will follow this format, and this will happen across every major company, is that what does GameStop do now, right? Now, if you go to your local GameStop, it's different for every part of the country, but at least for where I live, most of the store is not filled up with video games. It's filled up with memorabilia. It's filled up with Pokemon cards or trading card games or board games, or a wide variety of other miscellaneous gaming or nerd related memorabilia that people either associate with gaming, or it's just the culture that people are a part of. And so you can go in there and you can buy all these kind of things. I never go in there and buy any of that stuff. I'm really more focused on the video game side. I don't really buy t-shirts or those little figurines. I don't really do all that. But what's going to happen with all of these physical media, the more I think about it, I think this is going to ultimately be a good thing for these resale stores, for these physical media stores, because you're now going to see a rush of people that are going to be like, well, if we're now in the point of our history, of our culture, where physical media is going to end, I might as well start collecting these games I've never gotten to play, or at least get the games I know that will still work on a console even without the internet. Just using Sony as an example, the PS3 and the PS4 era discs, a lot of those games are incredibly good. They're all still high resolution, 3D games, 1080p, etc. And I think a lot of people are going to go out and buy these games, and they're going to build their inventory, and they're going to move away from the newer games, the digital download only. And again, this is just my perspective as an older millennial. I think the other part of this that no one's really talking about is, who is the next generation of gamers? Like, what are they going to care about? What are they going to pursue? If you look at the video game industry, or at least the resale or the vintage stores, the people who are opening these stores are millennials. They're in their mid to late 30s. There's really nobody who's in the next generation down that's interested in opening video game stores or pursuing vintage video games, because they've been engulfed in nothing but the modern culture. And the modern culture is download, digital, all these modern games. They don't know really what it's like to play the games that made us gamers in the late 90s and early 2000s and the 2010s. That really defined our love of gaming, because that's considered by most the golden age of video games. Nonetheless, I have 3 nephews, and I kind of look at them and I try to gauge where they are. And I have one nephew who's really into retro games, and he does that through his Switch. He plays them on the Nintendo Switch through the retro game sections that they have for the N64 or Super Nintendo or whatever. And he really likes playing those games, but he doesn't ever buy the games, right? Because he just plays them through Nintendo, which can add or remove any game at any time. So if he really likes a game and they decide to remove it, he has no power to keep it or to play it again. He's at the whim of Nintendo. And then my other nephew, who's the oldest, he's really into more modern games, the racing games, the Fortnite type games, And so, but again, he's not looking at the physical media. He doesn't really care. He's always just kind of gone onto the store and downloaded whatever game he wants. He has an Xbox, so he has Xbox Game Pass, and that's how he plays most of his games. So the younger generations, in my opinion, aren't really too concerned with physical media because it wasn't ever a thing that they had as kids. So there's no nostalgia there. There's no habit forming things happening there. So they're just kind of going with the flow. So what that means is most of the people going out that are going to buy physical media are either millennials or maybe the oldest of the next generation down that have stumbled into it. But you're going to slowly see people die off that are interested in physical media. And what I mean by that is that their interests will die off, or there just won't be a big enough pool of people. And so, but I do think that the millennials and the younger millennials that are still into physical media are still going to pursue building out collections, buying the games they never got a chance to play because they're older, they have the money. And so I think that's going to hold up these retro stores for a while. And I think they're going to start making a lot more money because they're going to see this interest peak of like, hey, there's nothing else there. These are like whatever games that are in the circulation that work. That's it, right? That's all you're going to be able to get. And unless you want to buy a digitally remastered version or you want to buy an online version that there's no physical media attached to it, then you're kind of at the whim of whatever organization or company or service you bought that from. You're not going to be able to play that game if they decided to delist it or whatever. So the physical media is really the only way you're going to be able to play that game into perpetuity or even hand it down to the next generation of people because there's going to be no more physical media. What else kind of is similar to this right now when it comes to physical media? And the best thing that I can think of is musical records. Records kind of died off a little bit when we moved to tapes and then the CDs. And now CDs have kind of died when it comes to people going and buying music. But if you go and look, there's tons of stores of people reselling retro vinyl, and these things are still there for purchase, and people really like that. Now, I think music is a much wider pool of people, and music will always appeal to almost every human for all of existence. And I think that's why music will always persist with that physical media. But I think video games, even though it's really mainstream now, I think it's still a niche community of people in the wide scope of things when it comes to like the Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, PC gaming. People that went out and made a risk and took a risk over the last 10, 20 years to open a retro gaming store. I think they're going to see a huge surge over the next 3 to 5 years of people trying to build out their inventory because the reality is now setting in that, hey, these companies are going to do away with physical. I'd love to think that the pushback of the community would want to change these companies' minds, but it won't because they only care about profit and they're only going to do what allows them to make more profit. And if they have a monopoly on their storefront and they can list and delist anything they want, then of course they're going to do that, and they're never going to lower the price so that you're always forced to pay full price. But what I really think is I think these stores are going to start doing well. I think as the millennial generation continues to get older and has value in this physical collection and has the desire to gift it to the next generation, I think all people do that no matter what the hobby is or what the passion is. They want to gift whatever it is they have to the next generation because they love it and they want the next generation to love it as well. Yeah, I just think the people that have took a risk, that have a store, that are doing these things now, I think they're gonna see an increase as people settle in and realize, hey, physical media is dying. I really need to build out a collection because nothing is ever gonna be made anymore, at least not officially. And so people are gonna want that. People are gonna really want that collection. Anyway, those are my thoughts on it. I'd love to know what you think. If this is something you've been thinking about, and maybe you're someone who actually owns a store, I'd love to hear your perspective and how you feel about it. And yeah, that's kind of it. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.